Hello and welcome. As I told you at the end of the last video, we'll be going through my poem called Equator, which is the next poem from my book, Maybe Someday, Maybe Someday. So if you're new here, we've been going through every poem in my book, one by one, in videos here on my channel. And today we'll be going through Equator. So as we usually do here, I will just share the poem with you here first and let you get your initial impressions of it and just hear the full thing. And then afterwards, we'll dive a little bit deeper into what exactly the story behind this poem is that inspired me to write it in the first place, and then what specific things throughout here truly mean to me and what I was trying to say with it all. So, Equator is a poem for like that special person in your life who just kind of, in a way, kind of feels like your other half or whatever. And I mean, that's what I wrote it about and hope that it can connect with you in a similar way. So here is Equator. You found me when you were stretched across your globe, and I bound you in all the comfort that I know. Words sounding from those around you thought you loved, and they send you to your farthest below and above. At your coldest, driest points, separated from yourself, with a whole world in between, your melting will soon be settled as I step into the scene. If you're the poles, then I'm the equator. Bridge the gap along the prime meridian and bring you back into your center. I fell in deep, so scared of what you thought. I lay so low, trapped by the doubts and worries that I brought. And I can't sleep because the thought of losing has me fraught. But I don't know whether it's all even real or not. At my coldest, driest points, separated from myself, with a whole world in between, my melting will soon be settled as you step into the scene. If I'm the poles, then you're the equator. Bridge the gap along the prime meridian and bring me back out to my center. When you're the poles, I'll be your equator. With all they stole, I'll be the mediator. When I'm the poles, you'll be my equator. You'll be my equator. I'll be your equator. If we're both the poles, we'll be each other's equator. Though we may each have such different caves we're in, we'll pull each other back out to our center. We'll bring ourselves back to the equator. And there we'll be together until you get lost again and start to wander back out to the places that make you suffer. But just know that you matter. I'll bring you back to the equator. So that was Equator, and as always, I of course hope that you enjoyed it and potentially found some things that you could personally connect with within my poem. And of course, if any of that is true, I would love to hear about it in the comments, see what stood out to you. That's always an interesting thing for me to see, like what about the things I say and write can resonate with other people who read it or hear it. So now for a little bit of the story behind it. As I said earlier, this poem is one that I wrote for someone who was special in my life at the time. As with everything in this book, it was written several years ago, back when I was in high school. And this was one that I wrote at the very beginning of my first ever relationship, and it was, I mean, the very first poem I ever wrote for her, and just tries to capture a lot of what was happening at the time and trying to show my support for her and appreciation for the impact she's made on my life and how I want to sort of return the favor to her in a lot of ways. So starting off in that first section there, it's very much about her and what she was going through when we first met and everything. She had recently started getting into a bit of a relationship that quickly wasn't going that well and was struggling with that a lot. And I didn't actually really know her that much personally prior to this, but I had been close with that guy that she had been talking to, and so when she started having problems in the beginning of that, she came to me looking for like advice and help, sort of, since I knew him well, like trying to help her resolve the problems they were going through a little bit. So that's what I mean when I'm saying you found me when you were stretched across your globe. She came into my life at a time where she was just like stretched across your globe is supposed to like represent how she was overwhelmed with this tough situation she was trying to deal with. And then I bound you in all the comfort that I know. I, of course, tried to help her as much as I could and reassure her that this would all work out and that she'd be okay in the end. Then words sounding from those around you thought you loved, then referencing like that not so great relationship she had kind of started getting into and thinking that this was someone she really loved, and then being faced with words and actions from them that didn't quite show that the way she thought it was. So then they send you to your farthest below and above. Of course, with this poem being called Equator, like about the Earth, like the equator is like right in the middle, like balanced between the top and the bottom. And so when I reference being like above and below, or like the poles and everything later on, that's like being pulled away from your sort of place of equilibrium and balance and peace or whatever, like being pulled to these opposing points. And that's what this whole situation kind of did for her. And so then that next part is me trying to, um, I mean, at first just recognize that she is separated in these poles away from the equator, but then trying to reassure her that I will do everything I can to help resolve this issue and bring her back into that equator. So then that next section there is a bit more focused on me personally and sort of simultaneously tells two different kind of stories at the same time. So one is a bit more focused on me and my like own personal struggles, like as I've said before with poems I've gone through in here already. This book and a lot of this poetry was written at a time when I was very much struggling with like depression and anxiety and all kinds of that sort of stuff, and just was not in a good place, like personally, internally, and everything. So one is a bit more focused on that kind of idea where I like say I fell in deep, so scared of what you thought. Like I fell deep within my mind, worried about like all my insecurities and feelings of like being judged and everything, like feeling like I'm not good enough and all that kind of stuff. So then I lay so low, trapped by the doubts and worries that I brought. I'm just, I mean, overwhelmed by all this internal struggle that I just feel like so depressed and everything. And I can't sleep because the thought of losing has me fraught, like battling those things I was dealing with at the time. And then in the end, but I don't know whether it's all even real or not, just kind of invalidating myself in a way, kind of for the way I was feeling, and wondering if I was just doing maybe like doing this all to myself and making it up. And that was very much a thing that kind of got in the way of this relationship for me, like throughout. And then the other side of it is kind of more focused on the relationship itself, where I say I fell in deep, so scared of what you thought, where like I immediately like fell in deep to the relationship and everything. But at the same time, I lay so low, trapped by the doubts and worries that I brought. I often found it hard to fully like reciprocate or be there for her the ways I should have, because those doubts and worries that I had held me back a lot of times. And I can't sleep because the thought of losing has me fraught. I was like afraid of losing her. And then at the end, but I don't know whether it's all even real or not, kind of doubting the realness of the relationship and whether it was good and could last or anything. And spoilers, it didn't. But yeah. Anyway, then that next part kind of reflects what it said in the first section, but then directed more to me this time, where it says, "At my coldest, driest points, separated from myself with the whole world in between, my melting will soon be settled as you step into the scene." Seeing how having her around kind of in a way reduced my struggles sometimes, and like I might be super stressed at a time, but then she comes and helps that to subside a bit. And when I'm just like overwhelmed within my own personal struggles, she helped to bring me back out of my inner self and see things for as they really were, and escape that feeling I had of being like trapped within my own head sometimes. So this was a poem overall that I kind of wrote in a song kind of structure. I'm sure you can kind of see how there's like the verse, pre-chorus, chorus, verse, pre-chorus, chorus that we've gone through so far. And then this next part would be like the bridge of the song, where I say, "When you're the poles, I'll be your equator. With all they stole, I'll be the mediator." Again, just reaffirming how I will do everything I can to bring her peace and to where she wants to be with herself and in her life as things get tough, and try to pull her away from that. And also kind of referencing that thing I talked about early on, where I was trying to be a sort of mediator for her when she was going through a tough time with another relationship. And since they were both people that I cared about, trying to support both sides of it and make it turn out good for both of them. And then after that, then repeating how she'll also be that other half for me, and be my equator when I'm separated at the poles. So then there's that last like chorus bit, if we're going by that song structure I mentioned before. It says, "If we're both the poles, we'll be each other's equator. Though we may each have such different caves we're in, we'll pull each other back to our center. We'll bring ourselves back to the equator." Kind of then showing that if both of us are in that tough place, still we will do everything we can to bring each other and ourselves back to that place we want to be. And in that third line, saying that though we may each have such different caves we're in, we both have completely different things that we struggle with and that pull us to those parts across our globes. And we're like trapped in these completely different cold, icy caves of our own insecurities or struggles or whatever it is that we are dealing with. Despite that, we will always try to be there in any way we can to support each other and help ourselves out of those caves, and to come back to the equator where we want to be together. And so then that sort of outro bit of it, "And there we'll be together until you get lost again and start to wander back out to the places that make you suffer. But just know that you matter. I'll bring you back to the equator." Just knowing that this whole thing could be kind of a cycle in a way, that even though we bring ourselves back to the equator, eventually we recognize that something's going to happen to bring us back out of it. And just again reminding her that when that does happen, I will do everything I can to not let her suffer, because she like truly matters to me, and I want to do everything I can to make her feel at peace and happy and as she wants and deserves to be. So now just a few little bonus things about this poem that I wanted to share. So one thing is that how in my poem Home Forever, I talked about how that whole poem came from just like asking my brother to give me a random like word or thing or whatever that I should write about, and he just told me to write about that like yellow grass that he saw on the side of the highway. And then it turned into this whole poem that expressed my struggles through dealing with my parents' separation. So then I wanted to try a similar thing with this one because, yet again, I felt like writing, but I didn't know what exactly to write about. So just wanted some sort of starting point to get my mind thinking and lead me into something, hoping that it could turn out like sort of how the previous one did. So this time I asked my mom for a random word and she told me ball. And again, I was like, well, that's not helpful. What am I supposed to do with ball? But then I just started thinking and like, and then ball just got me thinking a bit more generally, like about a sphere and what are things that are spheres. And then it just got me kind of going on this whole like train of thought that eventually led me to thinking about the earth and the equator. And I thought that could be an interesting thing to write about, and started as I was thinking about that, formulating like the main concept of this poem and starting to realize what I wanted to write about. So, like that word of globe and thinking about the equator and everything originally came from ball, and then led me to writing this poem to this girl I liked. And so, if you are someone who likes to write or create in any way, sort of, I think that could be a fun thing to try. Just have someone give you something random to start with and see where it leads you. Because, I mean, I feel like just kind of having that random thing to hold on to and get my thoughts going just lets what needs to come out naturally come out. And then also, just, I, as I often do, just had a lot of fun with the rhyming and structure of it. That's always a very fun thing for me. One of my favorite things about poetry is the rhyme and the structure and everything like that. So I'm not going to go through every detail of this with that, but if you go through, I'm sure you can see kind of what I'm talking about. And it was just one early on that I was really proud of with that and really enjoyed figuring out. So that's all I have on Equator. And as always, of course, I hoped that you enjoyed and found some things within my poem that you could resonate with in some way or that could inspire you in some way at all. And if you're still here at this point, I would guess that something in there is probably true, and would, of course, appreciate it if you would like, subscribe, follow, whatever. And I hope to see you next time for the next poem in my book, which is called Everything You Do. So, yeah, anyway, thank you for watching, and as always, remember, we're all broken, and we're just arranging the pieces. Thank you.